In today's video, I want to take a look at some more 2021 NHL rumors on some potential realignment in very different looking divisions for the upcoming season. And we also have some NHL news on the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. We'll discuss all the latest coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a few things to talk about here today. Before we jump into the NHL realignment news for the upcoming season, I just want to touch on a couple other quick items here concerning the Leafs and the Senators. Now, first up with Ottawa, the Senators have signed 2020 second round pick Egor Sokulov, who was a bit of a late bloomer, has been through the draft before and was passed over. It's a 6'4" winger out of Russia, has been playing junior hockey in Canada in the Cape Breton Screaming Eagles system in the Quebec Region Junior Hockey League. Certainly had a really solid year last year and has worked really hard. And now he not only gets drafted this year, but he gets his entry-level contract. So the Senators have a little bit of a history here of getting some late blooming type of players. Like Drake Batherson is a prime example of that, who also came out of the exact same program in the queue with Cape Breton as well. So obviously he looks like he could be a solid prospect. He's got good size, good offensive abilities, and we'll see what he can do for the coming years. Not quite clear where he's going to play yet. He's eligible to still play another year of junior. He's also eligible to play in the American Hockey League or the NHL, so it's not really sure what the plans are for him as of yet, but he's officially, on paper, a member of the Ottawa Senators. Now, staying with the Senators, there's also news that goaltender Anders Nilsson very well could miss the entire upcoming 2021 NHL season. So as we know, Anders Nilsson previously suffered a concussion and really missed a big chunk of last season as well. Marcus Högberg had an opportunity to kind of run with things at the NHL level, along with Craig Anderson. We know that Anderson's not in the picture anymore. He's, at this point, still a free agent, might end up retiring, not quite clear if he's pursuing opportunities or not. Of course, we know the Senators made a big acquisition trading for goaltender Matt Murray from Pittsburgh and signed him to a fairly lucrative contract. So Murray's expected to be the starter. Marcus Högberg very well could still end up being the backup. Nilsson only has one more year left on his contract, so it's really difficult to say what his NHL future holds or if he will even have an NHL future. A lot of that's going to depend on his health as well, not just his contract status, but apparently he's still having some concussion-like symptoms over in Sweden. Sounds like he likely will travel to North America to take part in Senators training camp, at least at the beginning, once we have everything ironed out on a season, and they'll make a decision from there. But it looks like he is expected to start the year long-term injury reserve, and pretty good chance he could spend the entire year there and then become a free agent and see what his health and everything holds for that and beyond. Now, jumping over to their provincial rival, the Toronto Maple Leafs, we have a couple of different news items out of Toronto. One concerning their free agent signing Mikko Lehtonen, who was obviously previously playing in the KHL. His contract has been voided. Basically, he's been released from his contract, and he's headed to Toronto with the intention of making the Leafs. Obviously, we're seeing some players return to their NHL cities. I know we don't have a deal yet for the 2021 season, but there's obviously progress to be made, some big issues to be overcome, but obviously they must be getting word that it probably is best for them to head to where they're going to need to be in case they need to quarantine to get through all that. So when training camps are announced that they're ready to roll. But Lehtonen was having a phenomenal year last year in the KHL, was off to another flying start this year, off to really solid offensive numbers. The 26-year-old defenseman from Finland is expected to be not a guy that just comes over to North America and kind of tries out for a roster spot, maybe plays in the minors. I think he's going to have an excellent shot at being a regular in the Leafs lineup, and I think they got themselves quite the defenseman here. I mean, at least we'll see how things translate from the KHL to the NHL, but the way things were looking last year and how he played to start off the season this year, looks like he's really solid, and he'll be heading to Toronto here in short order to get ready for the NHL season. Now, of course, the other big piece of news here on the Leafs, there's been a rumor going around for some time about Boston Bruins captain Zdeno Chara possibly being linked to teams like Toronto, Tampa, or even the Islanders, and I've kind of dismissed many of these rumors before. We've talked about it on the channel, I think once or twice. I just don't see it happening. Now, Kyle Dubas himself has finally commented. He was asked by a reporter on this situation, and he said absolutely that if he felt that Chara was available, that he would certainly look into it. But he, for starters, said he didn't know how they'd find the cap space, which obviously complicates things. And he, at this point, thinks that it's pretty good chance that it's Boston or bust when it comes to the longtime captain of the Bruins. So he basically said he feels like if he doesn't play in Boston, he won't play at all. And, that very well could be the case. The teams that he's been linked to outside of Boston just hasn't made a lot of sense. And I'm not really sure that the teams that he's been linked to would really be able to sign him. So, obviously, like Dubas said, when a guy like that becomes available and it's known that he's not re-signing with the team that he played with for a long time, you certainly do your due diligence and you check it out. But, obviously, where are they going to find the space? And they're going to end up boxing out another player out of their lineup. They have a lot of defensemen right now. Obviously, he'd be a great mentor for the Leafs. He'd be a great mentor for any team, really, and quite a presence in the locker room, presence on the blue line, just a whole character piece. And obviously the guy can still play at his age. So, clearly they'd have to check things out. But even Dubas said that he's not suspecting him to be in a Leaf uniform next year, and he feels that the odds are likely that he either returns to Boston or decides not to play. So I think we can put the Chara to Leafs rumor to bed. It's definitely not something I ever saw happening, and now we have it right from Kyle Dubas that is not expected there as well. And not that you want to take everything a general manager says at face value. I've said that before. Of course, they're not going to really show you their cards. They're not going to really, give a lot of great details to the media as to what their plans are. But obviously, in this case, I think we can take this one for what it is, and I just don't see it happening. Just from a logistical standpoint, how would they make it happen? It's tough to say. Nice thought, but it's not likely going to become a reality. Now, as I've talked about here on the channel before, we're very much expecting a 2021 to bring realignment to the NHL, even if it's only on a temporary basis, possibly just for one NHL season. Now, of course, we talked about the All-Canadian division happening. It's pretty much as time goes on here, as everything kind of changes with COVID and where everything's at, it's pretty much a given if the NHL is going to have a season that it's going to have an All-Canadian division, because there's just no way that these teams are going to be able to travel back and forth across the North American border between Canada and the United States. So obviously that's a given. But the other divisions we talked about before may not be happening the way that we thought it would. There's a new information out that came out yesterday from ESPN and Greg Wyshynski. Wyshynski had an article out yesterday outlining how what he feels the divisions are going to look like based on what his sources are telling him. And they do seem to be a little bit different than what we had talked about and reported on before. So I wanted to kind of share that information here with you to see what everybody thinks. But obviously these divisions will definitely be different. It could present some really interesting situations. From what we're hearing right now, the NHL is still banking on a January 1st or early January start. Obviously, probably around a 60-game schedule, and it would only be interdivisional games, at least for the foreseeable future. And then hopefully they'll figure out playoffs from there. But obviously, as we know and we've talked about, we have some other hurdles that need to overcome, including what the players are going to be paid for the coming season before we can really get to that point. Now that the owners have come back with some different requests that did not go over well with the NHLPA. But here are the other three divisions besides the Canadian division on how the NHL is expected to be realigned according to ESPN's most up-to-date information here as of yesterday. So let's take a look at these one by one. So your division that would kind of be your Eastern division, if you will, would include all the teams in the New York area, which obviously includes the Islanders and Rangers, as well as the Devils, and then you get the Sabres, obviously, in the state of New York as well. It also includes the Boston Bruins, the Washington Capitals, the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Carolina Hurricanes. So it'd be interesting to have the Flyers and the Penguins not be in the same division, considering how close those two teams are. So it's a little bit different than we had reported on previously. So that right now, according to ESPN, would be your Eastern division. Your Central division would consist of teams like the Detroit Red Wings, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Your two teams down in Florida, the Panthers and the Lightning, would also include the Penguins, the Nashville Predators, and the St. Louis Blues. So, again, slightly different than we had before. Be interesting to see Pittsburgh match up with all those Central teams. And then, of course, that leaves the Western Division, which would have some of the teams that are normally in the Central Division, which could benefit teams like the Avalanche here, so at least in my opinion. So let's take a look at that Western Division, which is what the teams that are left here, which would include the Vegas Golden Knights. You've got the Minnesota Wild, the Colorado Avalanche, the Dallas Stars, you've got the Arizona Coyotes, and of course the three teams in California, the Los Angeles Kings, Anaheim Ducks, and the San Jose Sharks. So it's certainly some interesting realigned divisions for the upcoming year, if this indeed holds to be true. Like I said, the Canadian division part is pretty much a given. That much is, I'd say, is 99.9% certainty going to happen. There's just no way around it. I don't see how they can have a season without it. And the other divisions obviously make sense, I think, based on these new ones that we're seeing, as well as the ones we previously had before. There's not a great deal of difference than the ones before, but there are some teams moved around here a little bit to kind of change things up. They'd have regional play with the hopes to be able to change things on, a little bit later on. So that is all your latest updates here for today. We don't really have a whole lot of information more on the 2021, how negotiations have went. There really wasn't a lot that came out today as far as any progress was made. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that we get some news here again in the near future to suggest that the 2021 season is not too far from starting and hopefully becomes a reality for January 1st or sometime real close to that. Let me know your thoughts on everything discussed here today, and we'll discuss further down in the comments. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.